Even as President Obama unveiled plans this week for tighter gun control, state legislators in Missouri began preemptive action to counteract any coming regulations. Under a bill introduced in the Missouri Senate, federal agents trying to enforce new gun restrictions in the Show Me state would be guilty of a Class D felony. The measure seeks to nullify any federal law restricting semi-automatic guns and accessories beyond restrictions that existed at the end of 2012. Similar legislation had been filed in the Missouri House. By midweek, the measure had already gathered 70 co-sponsors. Joplin area lawmaker Casey Guernsey helped craft the bill.
You know, of course, it's brought about because of all the tragedies that's taken place over the last few months, which is, you know, horrific. But it's unfortunate that so many people are willing to use those particular tragedies to further their cause of gun control. That is outrageous to me.
So can a state like Missouri, though, preempt laws that are coming from the federal government on gun control? Stacey?
No. It's that simple. The Supremacy Clause of the Constitution doesn't allow it. So if the federal government, either through executive order, through administrative action, or through legislation passes gun control laws, they can't do it. But more importantly, the states have no authority to arrest a federal agent who comes into the state to try to enforce a law. I mean,
why then is the state of Missouri, why are state lawmakers then pushing this?
It's good politics.
And it's getting a huge amount of co-sponsors already, Bill.
It is, and I agree with Stacey. It is good politics. This is an incendiary issue. It's timely because of the recent tragedy at Sandy Hook. And other states, by the way, Missouri is not alone in this. There are other states doing the same thing.
Okay. A couple of points. First, this is an interesting, Stacey, of course, is right. You can't nullify federal laws. There is the Supremacy Clause. But a couple of states legalized marijuana smoking in November, and there is a coming clash between those state laws and federal laws which prohibit the possession of marijuana. That'll be a real test of the Supremacy Clause at some point, or could be anyway. Second point, nothing is funnier than watching state legislators complain about federal mandates and orders from Washington, and then turn around and order states and counties to do something. In this case, for example, the state does not allow Kansas City or St. Louis or any municipality to set its own gun laws, because somehow the state is smarter than both the federal government and local governments. That always causes me to chuckle a little bit.
If Kansas City, Missouri, for instance, wanted to put some restrictions on gun ownership in, say, Sly James wanted to do that in the city council, they couldn't?
Correct, and we spoke to Sly James about this, and it's frustrating to think that it is set up in a one-size-fits-all manner, that the rules for a Joplin, Missouri, and a very small rural town, pick your town in Missouri, are the same for St. Louis and Kansas City, where our homicide rate topped 100 last year. And so the mayor said, our hands are tied. We would like to do all kinds of things and think out of the box and look at other cities and what other municipalities have done specifically with urban core crime and black on black crime, and there is absolutely nothing we can do about it.
You know, the legislature does this a lot. The legislature prohibits cities, for example, from raising their cigarette taxes. You know, Kansas City might want to raise its tobacco tax to pay for things. The state legislature preempted that. That happens a lot.
But I should point out here, though, the governor, Jay Nixon, a Democrat, said he would not support giving cities the power to regulate guns. This is not just a Republican issue. The Democratic governor says he wouldn't even allow that to happen.
Well, you know, gun control, in terms of favoring less gun control, is a bipartisan issue. You see Senator Joe Manchin, one of the more conservative Democratic senators, and he's not stepping out too far on a limb to say he's too far for gun control, and it's the fear for the powerful gun lobby. But let's go back to a minute for what Sly James said and some of the other city mayors. They are only pointing to gun control as the issues that will solve the murder rates in these inner cities. You want to think outside of the box, Mayor Sly James, then let's look at some things in terms of education and economics and poverty issues. It's not just guns. And while we're getting sidetracked on just guns, I think that needs to be pulled back in. Gun control isn't the only solution to this problem.
Well, Bill Grady at KMBZ, you decided to try for yourself this week how easy it is to purchase a weapon and what kinds of questions you might be asked. You showed up at last weekend's Expo Gun Show, which, by the way, as you can see from this footage from 41 Action News, saw huge crowds. Now, what kind of weapon were you looking to buy, first of all, Bill?
I went in with the idea of buying a low-cost, high-capacity type of what's pejoratively called an assault rifle. And I couldn't find the particular model I was looking for. I ended up buying a used, which some would say an assault rifle, some would say it's not. But the process was amazingly simple.
Okay, and were you, now the question also was, were you asked any questions about a background check or anything of that nature?
No, but let me be clear about something. The gentleman I purchased this weapon from was not a licensed firearms dealer. He was a private seller. He didn't do anything illegal. I didn't do anything illegal. It's just that it was amazingly simple and took about a grand total of 2 minutes.
One of the things Bill taught me, which I think it bears repeating, we hear a lot about the gun show loophole, and it infuriates the gun nuts to hear that term. It's really, according to Bill, a private seller loophole that he could have left with 100 guns and sold them out of the trunk of his car to anyone he wanted with no background check at all. Anyone can do that legally in the United States. And I've asked time and time again why the gun dealers, why that doesn't bother them, that they can be in booth A and have to play by the rules, and some guy in booth B doesn't have to play by the same set of rules. And the president has said there is a great deal of space between the Second Amendment and no rules at all. And I think we're all trying to figure out what that space is right now.
Bill.
The only thing, and Dana's right, there really isn't a loophole in terms of the gun shows. The only distinction is, in a private sale, generally speaking, you're going to transact at someone's home. It's going to involve 1 or 2 weapons. If you go to a gun show, and a non-licensed dealer can have a whole array of weapons, variety, handguns, rifles, shotguns, because this gentleman had probably 2-3 dozen weapons. And so it really is, you know, volume and variety that makes the distinction, if that in fact is a loophole.